Alright guys, welcome to part 3. We're on to the L's now, and it's 2 Zelda games. First up is Skyward Sword. I won't say too much about this, everyone already knows about this game. This is the special CD edition. Fantastic game. I think the Wii controls help tremendously with Zelda games. I think it adds a little bit to them. This one is a beautiful looking game. Typical Zelda game, but definitely worth playing. And of course then there's Twilight Princess. This was obviously the GameCube original that they remade for the Wii. Obviously it's more expensive to buy for the GameCube. I personally think the Wii edition's better because it has the controls. A lot of people don't like that. This isn't the best of the Zelda games. I think it looks a bit better than Skyward Sword, to be honest. I like the art style more of this one. But yeah, Zelda. Everyone knows what Zelda's like. Now there's 3 Metroid games for the Wii. Metroid games, I think you either love them or you hate them. Certainly when they arrived on the GameCube, when they changed it to a first person point of view, it lost a lot of fans. I enjoyed them. And here's probably at the moment, the only official, quotation marks, rare game for the Wii. This is Metroid Prime Trilogy. This was released in very low numbers, so that's why it's so rare. Average price for it now is £50, which is, since it's only been out for a few years, is still quite interesting. It's basically the 3 Metroid Prime games. The first and second one's from the GameCube, the third one from the Wii, and they've all been done with Wii controls. Some of the graphics have slightly been updated, nothing major. But if you're a fan of Metroid games, it's definitely worth even paying £50 for it. It's loads of hours of enjoyment. And there's Metroid Prime 3 on its own. I actually bought this before I found Trilogy. It's a good game, Metroid Prime 3. It's worth playing on its own, even if you haven't already played 1 and 2 on the Cube. It's definitely worth playing. It's a good sort of space game. The final Metroid game is Metroid Other M. This divided a hell of a lot of people. Lots of people think this is a terrible game. It plays a lot different from the other ones. It's sort of like a platformer, a third perspective platformer. You can swap to a first person view. I think this is brilliant. It's got an old school charm to it. It's you basically play as Samus throughout the whole game, not so much as her as Metroid. So it's a lot more of her backstory and whatnot. So you either love it or you hate it, but I personally think it's really, really good. There's a few GameCube games released for the Wii, sort of updated versions, and this was one of them. It's Mario Power Tennis. This uses just the Wii remote. You swing the Wii remote to play your tennis. It's sort of like tennis on Wii Sports, but you actually get to control your character. It plays quite well actually. It's certainly not virtual tennis or anything like that, but the controls do work quite well. And it's Mario, of course. Everyone loves the Mario. Right, here's a game that I'm sure everyone's seen. It's in every second-hand shop, and it's Mad World. Again, this was a pretty grown-up game for the Wii. It's an odd style. It's in sort of hand-drawn black and white. I think it looks fantastic. The only colour in the whole game is red for blood. It's incredibly violent. It's a bit of a no-brainer sort of game. You just continue to bang the buttons and waggle the remote. But it's a third person beat 'em up really, sort of like a Streets of Rage style game, but it's set in like a tournament and you have to basically survive, sort of like the Running Man of the Arnold Schwarzenegger film Running Man. But this is everywhere for £1, £2, so if you see it and you have a Wii, give it a try guys, you might enjoy it. It's certainly one of the most stylistic games I've ever played. Right, a third person platforming game now, Mushroom Men: The Spore Wars. This is a good game. It's similar to sort of Rayman 2, if you ever played that. Open world, Mario 64 style game. Pretty good game, pretty fun. I can't really recommend it too much because there's nothing that it does exceptionally well, but if you see it cheap, you won't be disappointed with it. A couple Medal of Honor games now. Medal of Honor Vanguard. Obviously Medal of Honor have really lost their way of late. The games are not as good as the Call of Duty games. This was unique in that when war games shifted to modern combat, this still stayed in World War II. I think it was a Wii exclusive, but I could be wrong. Use the Wii remote and nunchuck again, so it doesn't play that well. But it's just your bog standard World War II game. If you've played one of these games, you've played them all. Here's one, Medal of Honor Heroes. This is the second one. This is actually quite a good game because you have the option of playing it as a normal Medal of Honor game or an on-rails shooter. And the on-rails sections are far better, to be honest. You just have to focus on shooting the bad guys, reloading, and it's really enjoyable. A decent sized length. Yeah, I'd actually recommend this one. It's good fun to pick up. Here's a game that it's sort of got a bad reputation. Mad Dog McCree came out for the old Philips CDIs and things like that. It's one of the first light gun games. This is a triple pack. It's got all 3 games in it. Now, I personally love this game. It's a terrible game. I would just like to stress that. It is terrible. It's unresponsive. You can only shoot the bad guys at certain points. Good friend Sega Saturn Lad also commented on this. He says that you could shoot at them 50 times and it doesn't register, but as long as you shoot them at the right point, they'll die. But I just love the cheesiness of it. The acting's terrible, so I can't recommend it because it is a terrible game, but I think it's enjoyable. And unfortunately I've completed all 3 games numerous times. They just don't make these games like that anymore. For a good point, for a good reason. Right, this has to be one of the most, not only the best looking game on the Wii, but the best looking game I have ever seen. Muramasa, the Demon Blade. Again, it's sort of like a 2D hack and slash style game, sort of like a Guardian Hero style setup, where you go from screen to screen, beating up guys, using your various different swords and whatnot. But it just looks beautiful. This is the type of graphics that are in the game. Beautiful, hand-drawn, wonderful sort of art style, great music. It really does build up a bit of an atmosphere. The game does get a little boring because that's really all it is. You just go from room to room and hack slash folks' faces off and cut their balls off and things like that. But it's really good. Highly recommend it. It's worth even just watching somebody play it. That's how beautiful it is. So that's Muramasa. Now here's Mario, New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Everyone's played this. If you haven't played it, it's a great Mario game to play. All the Mario games on the Wii are fantastic. I'm actually missing Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 and Paper Mario. I've not actually seen them cheap enough yet. But you can't go wrong with a Mario game on the Wii, and this is no exception. Another Mario game here, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. A good little track and field style game. Sort of an odd setup because clearly Sonic would whip Mario's arse at events like running and whatnot. But there's a good selection of events. Archery is one of my favourites. All the characters are here. And they've also got a few dream events that are non-Olympic style games. This is available in a Winter Games pack as well and a London Olympic Games. The Winter Pack game is obviously slightly different. It's got winter events, but the London one's just got a few extra events. Another Mario game, Mario Strikers Football. This is just the same as the GameCube version, but just slightly updated. Pretty good football game. It's very basic, it's not very deep. It's good in 2-player. but you won't sit and play it for hours on end. It doesn't have the depth of, say, Pro Evo or FIFA. But it's a pretty good arcade style football game, the type of game you would maybe see on a Neo Geo. Oh, excuse me. Right, Mario Kart Wii. Not my favourite Mario Kart. I think this one isn't as good because they've took out the sliding abilities. I think that was a stupid idea. You can't drift around corners in this one. But pretty good. Mario Kart. Pick it up. Right, nice, lovely little title this. Mercury Meltdown Revolution. This is the sequel to Archery McLean's Mercury. Again, it's similar to a previous game, Dewey's Adventure. You control a little blob and you have to guide him around the level by tilting the Wii remote. Really good, challenging puzzle game. It does get a little frustrating with the Wii when you're moving the Wii remote about, but I've seen this for £1. Definitely worth picking up for £1, guys. Looks nice as well. Lovely graphics. Two good games here. No More Heroes, again by Rising Star Games. This is probably one of the premier titles on the Wii. It's sort of like a hack and slash style game. Wonderful graphics. This one isn't as good as the sequel, I feel, because it's got an open world portion to it where you have to go hunt for jobs, and some of the jobs are pretty funny. It's got a wonderful sense of humour. Lots of sexual tension between the main character, Travis Touchdown, and the female lead in it. She looks absolutely gorgeous in it as well. She looks even better in the sequel here, No More Heroes 2. They basically just streamlined this from the first one. They took all the good points, tried to take away all the bad points. It looks better. You've got a beautiful blonde haired woman with her tits out, it's not to like. And of course Travis is a likeable character. He's pretty funny. But they're good games, not for everyone, but I definitely recommend picking them up and giving them a try. If you've got the Need for Speed The Run, this is not anything like the PlayStation and Xbox versions. It's pretty poor, to be honest. It reminds me a lot of Tokyo Highway Challenge for the Dreamcast. You don't really ever need to go around any corners, you just race in a straight line. There's no animated FMV or anything like that in between races. It's just pathetic little cartoon sort of comic strips. No moving lips, no animation, no anything. So I wouldn't recommend this one, guys. I don't think the PlayStation version on that got good reviews either, to be honest. Now, I've always liked the Wii because I feel it is a prequel of sorts to the Dreamcast, and that's because Sega produced some of fantastic games for their consoles, and a lot of them got later releases on the Wii, and this is one of them, Knight's Journey of Dreams. This is a sequel of sorts to the original Nights into Dreams on the Saturn. Not as good. I don't know what it is about Sega games, they tend to lose their magic over a few years. But it's, again, if you've got any nostalgia for Sega, you'll enjoy this game. Open world game, when you go into levels, you could then control Knights as he normally controls, flying around a determined path and things like that. Good fun to control, but I would definitely recommend using a classic Pro controller for this one. Right, what we're on to now. Pause. Right. Now here's a title that basically, here's a game that says it all in the title. Onechanbara Bikini Zombie Slayers. Look at that for a front cover, eh? This was available for the 360 as well. It's a hack and slash where you play these two lovely young ladies and you get to hack up zombies while wearing bikinis. It's actually a bit of false advertising because this wee lassie never wears bikinis. I'm not 100% sure if she's underage or not. I'm slightly worried finding it attractive just in case she is. She is in a school uniform, but I don't know. I'll wait and see if the police chat my door. But a pretty good game. It gets repetitive fairly quickly, but It's good fun. You get to see heads rolling, body parts flying. You just bang the same button over and over again. So it's fun in short bursts, but it's bikini strippers basically. It's bikini zombie slayers. What more can you want in a game? Just going to catch a deathly cold in their pants though. Right, here's another game that looks absolutely fantastic. Okami. This was a PS2 game that got re-released for the Wii. If you know anything about this game, you have to do painting controls in it. Some of the special moves are activated by painting kanjis and whatnot. I think the Wii version adds to this because it's easier to paint with the Wii remote. Beautiful game, Zelda style game. You play a little wolf. It's a big massive game, I think it's like 50 hours long. But it's great fun from start to finish. I'd highly recommend this game. If you're a fan of sort of RPGs, action RPGs, you cannot really pass this one up. It looks beautiful. It'll keep you busy for months on end. Next up is Overlord Dark Legend. This is an odd game. It's sort of like a Pikmin style game where you play this Overlord and you can control these minions. But the Overlord character is played in a third person point of view, sort of like a Fable style game where you're running around, sort of like that style of land, sort of fairy tale style land. But you can control your minions to kill people, to do damage. It's pretty fun actually. It's got, again, a sick sense of humour. And that's the type of humour I enjoy in games. Certainly doesn't take itself too serious. So definitely worth picking up, guys, if you see it cheap. Fantastic remake now. Punch Out. Punch Out is just how a game should be remade. It has all the fun and characteristics of the original, but just with lovely new graphics. You can use the Wii balance board with this to duck and dive, but it's not really necessary. The Wii controls work excellent with it. You use them from side to side and you could flick them to punch the guy in the face and things like that. But really good game. Little Mac is back. He looks a lot taller in this one though. He's not as midget-like as he once was, I don't think. But Punch Out. This very, very highly recommended. Right, next up is Pandora's Tower. This was obviously part of Project Rainfall, I think it was called in America. Europe got it. Really good game. Again, it's sort of like a cross between God of War and Shadow of the Colossus. You have to climb towers in the game. I think there's 12 towers in total, and you have this chain attack thing that you could hook onto ledges and hook enemies and things like that. So it's sort of like a third person hack and slash style game, but a bit of puzzle solving involved. Wonderful graphics, wonderful story. Again, it's quite emotional. So definitely worth picking up. This is definitely going to be one game that's going to be harder to find in the future. Prince of Persia: Rival Swords. This is actually a remake of the last gen version of Two Thrones, but just that game with Wii controls. To be honest, it's not that great. The Wii controls kind of ruin the preciseness that you need for a Prince of Persia game. Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles, another fantastic Resident Evil game. This is an on-rail shooter. You basically can go through the games of Resident Evil 0, 1 and 3, which is Nemesis. You visit the same locations as that, but it's all on rails. It's pretty challenging, quite a large game as well. Looks good. If you're a fan of shooting games, you'll enjoy this, but if you're a fan of Resident Evil games, you'll love this. It was actually bettered by its sequel though, which is Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles. It was bettered because this time you got to go around Resident Evil 2 locations. You play as Leon or Claire Redfield, and it's just, graphics are better, the controls are slightly more tuned, and it's a quicker paced game. but it's definitely worth picking up. Really good game. Here's an update of an old classic 8-bit game, Rygar. I actually got this from CEX, I've not took the sticker off yet. This, again by Rising Star Games. This is a God of War rip-off through and through. It's nowhere near as good as God of War. It's only a 6-hour game, but I managed about 4 hours into it, but I just can't finish it. It just gets too boring. It's not a great depth to the controls. There's only a few attacks you could do. It's very confusing. You get lost quite easily in it, and it plays nothing like the original Rygar, which was sort of a 2D platformer. But so I'll probably give this one a miss, guys. Now here's a game that is again beautiful, Rayman Origins. This was meant to be a Wii exclusive again, but it got a multi-platform release. Rayman, his games are fantastic games, but they don't seem to get the credit they deserve. This was an old school style platformer, beautiful hand-drawn graphics, 2D, a huge game, I think over 60 levels. Just a great time from start to finish. If you're fed up with the Mario games and whatnot, this is definitely one to try. Obviously a lot of people are playing Rayman Legends at the moment, which is on the Wii U. If you finish Rayman Legends, this is definitely worth picking up as well. Right, next up is Red Steel. This was a sequel to one of the launch games for the Wii, Red Steel. That kind of got bad reviews because it had poor controls. It didn't really showcase what the Wii could do in terms of motion controls. It was a bit helter-skelter like. This uses the Wii Plus attachment to make the controls a bit more precise. It's set in a Wild West setting now, as opposed to a Yakuza setting, and it's a nice. Visually it looks beautiful, looks cracking, it's a decent setting, but I did prefer the Yakuza setting, to be honest. You can have swordplay as well as guns in this one. It's a good game, it's certainly underrated. A lot of people didn't play it because the first one was that bad, but I would certainly give this one a try. But obviously you need the Wii Plus to play it. Another Rayman game, Raven Rabbids. This is just a multiplayer game. Everyone's really played these games. I don't really enjoy them too much. I think whenever you're playing them with people, you just end up falling out. So, number 2. Here's an interesting little game, Spectrobes Origins. It's a sort of a Pokemon. It's a cross between Pokemon and Zelda. It's like an open world adventure game where you roam around, but then you have to fight battles Pokemon style by capturing Barry's enemies and whatnot, and using them against other enemies. It's not really my type of game. It is good fun, it's easy enough to play, but it's not really my type of game, to be honest. Here's quite a good one here, Sengoku Basara Samurai Warriors, no Samurai Heroes, sorry. This is made by Capcom. It plays a lot like the Dynasty Warriors games, where you play one man and you have to fight an army of thousands. This is a little less repetitive than the games. There's more objectives in these. You have to kill more generals and whatnot. But it looks beautiful. I was kind of disappointed with it because I did think, when I heard Sengoku, I thought it was going to be a sequel to the Neo Geo games, which were sort of Streets of Rage style games, but unfortunately it's not. But it looks nice, wonderful graphics. If you like the type of games, pick it up, it's worth playing. It's definitely a niche market, those style games though. Here's an absolute classic that everyone should own, SNK Arcade Classics. This is 16 games in one from the best of Neo Geo. The best of the bunch is probably Metal Slug. If you're curious about Neo Geo at all, this is the game to buy. All these games on here are fantastic. They're emulated well, not perfect, but good enough. If you've never played them before, you won't see any difference with them. And it's one of the only places you can play Shock Troopers, because that was only available on the MVS's on the Neo Geo, if I'm 100% correct on that. But yeah, definitely this is worth 40 quid all day long. So if you see it for cheap, it's definitely worth picking up. We've got Samba de Amigo. This is a remake of the Dreamcast version. They've never really changed anything, but they've made the game worse. The Wii remotes are less sensitive than the maracas were for the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast game was a fun game. It had a sensor pad, the maracas were wired into it, but the Wii remote doesn't work so well. You can get maraca attachments for it, which add a little bit to the game, but it's not that great, to be honest. I'd definitely recommend the Dreamcast version over this. However, the Dreamcast version does cost around £100. Last game in this pile, Skycrawlers Innocent Aces. This is a flight sim. Again, beautiful graphics, anime style look about it. Just a bog standard flight sim. I think it's based on an anime in real life, actually. I don't know that. I've never seen it. If I have. But yeah, it's basically just a flight game. Arcadey, it's not quite simulator like, but really good game. Looks good and a decent story. So it's a bit of a hidden gem, this Skycrawlers Innocent Aces. Right, I'll say that's the end of part 3. Got one last pile to go, so I'll stop it here, start in part 4.